Hey everybody, it's Brian Asbury, and I just wanted to welcome you to today's episode. If you could, like today's episode, hit that subscribe button, and let's continue to grow the developmentally speaking brand. Today, my guest is former NXT UK superstar, Mr. Travis Banks. Travis, how's it going, sir?
Good man, thanks for that intro, dude. Being called a superstar, it's nice of you. Thank you very much.
You earned it. So,
Yeah.
what made you want to get into professional wrestling?
Um. So I've always wanted to be in professional wrestling, even when I was a little kid. In New Zealand. Oh no, there's a bit of noise in the background. Even when I was a little kid, my sister had a boyfriend, a random guy, whatever, way back in the day, and we went around to his house, and I saw professional wrestling for the first time. And I was a massive fan of like Mortal Kombat and video games and stuff. And the very first pro wrestling that I saw was WCW, and the first match was Glacier versus Mortis, and it looked like like Shao Kahn versus like Sub Zero or something like that. So I was like, yo, can I swear on this? I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
you're fine. Yeah.
Yo, what the fuck? I was like, what is this? So ever since then, I was hooked by the big characters and the video game kind of aesthetic. And yeah, and then ever since then, even when I was a little kid, I was like, how do I get into this? I was always trying to figure out ways, and even when I didn't know how, I was like taking things like karate and rugby and any kind of sports that I could to try to prepare for it. I took drama in school just to kind of prepare for professional wrestling, even though I had no options on the table coming up. It was sort of in the back of my mind, and then I just like continued to try and pursue it
Uh,
into my 20s when I started. So
what made you finally make that decision that this was going to be something you were going to pursue?
um oh damn. So there's two things, right? So I have a massive collection of like autobiographies of like professional wrestling autobiographies, and I read Mick Foley's first one,
Mhm.
and that I was like, yo, this sounds so fun. Like this journey sounded like crazy and fun. And then I read Jericho's first one, and that was after I read Jericho's first one. That was when I was like, this sounds way too fun to like not try and pursue. So that was that. But then the like kind of the thing that solidified it in my mind was I in 2008, I think me and my best friend were walking around like my where I'm from is like a really small town in New Zealand, and right next to my hometown is a city. That's it. Well, I call it a city, but like in comparison to like now that I live in Mexico City, it's not really a city. It's just a bunch of people hanging out. No, but we walk around there, and we saw a poster for a professional wrestling show, and I had no idea about independent wrestling or nothing. And there was a poster, and right in the middle was a Raven's face, like, and I was like, "Is that fucking Raven coming to our city? Like, that's crazy." So we booked tickets, booked the meet and greet, everything like that, and we went. First experience of independent professional wrestling, and it was like I hate to say it because obviously it was like my entry into wrestling, but it was a really like terrible experience. And like a lot of the guys were like, um, a lot of the guys didn't like have gear. A lot of the guys didn't have like weren't in shape or anything like that. And I don't know what I expected, but
Mhm.
like I and then like Raven was like he was in the main against this guy called TNT from Australia, and he just I don't even know what he did. He had like fruit in his pocket. It's like he was like pulling up fruit and like throwing it at the crowd and stuff like that. It was like a really odd thing, and I remember sitting in the crowd going, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could do this. You know what I mean? Maybe I could give this a go. So that was like so that was that, and then I went and talked to the promoter that was there because I asked who he was, which one was the promoter, and and I spoke to him and I got his email, and that's how I started with that company that I watched. So those are the things that sort of solidified it in my mind when I realized that you could actually do it on an independent level, which I had no idea before that.
Mhm. So, how was training when you initially started this journey? Was it everything you thought it would be?
uh, nah, nah. So it's actually kind of a funny story that I've told like 1,000 times, but I'll try and give you a brief summary of it. You still there? Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
okay.
here.
Um, so I spoke to that guy that I said his name was Martin Sterling, and like I love him to this day. So like anything that comes after this, don't think I hate him or anything like that. But he so he sold me like when I was emailing him, he sold me like the training like it was the WWE Performance Center. He was like, we train 5 days a week, professional wrestling. That's all it is. And I was thinking, holy fuck! And I was like, how did I not know about this? This is crazy. And so we were emailing back and forth. And then I was at the time I was still doing like my sports science degree.
Hmm.
And that's what. Then as soon as he told me that I could come down and train, like it's all I could think about. So I quit my doing my degree, still have my student loan to this day. Uh, and I moved down and started training, or so I thought. So I moved down. I went to check out the place to see what it was all about, because it was like a couple hours from where I live. I pulled into the street as to where the performance center was, sort of thing, and it was just this like it was next to a train track, a train station train track, and it was this little like shitty iron tin shed with like the sign on the door, and I was thinking, holy fuck, what have I done? And then he turned up. He's just a big character. This guy Kumana Sterling. He brought me into the office and stuff. But the saving grace was like when we walked in, there was a bunch of us. There was a guy. So like I turned up and there was a guy like standing there, and I was like, oh hey man, is this where the professional wrestling course is? And he kind of looked at me like, what? And I was like, is there like professional wrestling here? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, oh, why are you here? He said, I'm a kickboxer. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure what's going on here. A real confusing situation. Then another guy turned up and he wasn't here for like any sports. And then another guy turned up and he said that he was there for wrestling. And I was like, okay. So anyway, Martin turned up. He brought us into the place, and the wrestling ring was there, and that was kind of like the saving grace. Like I was like, oh, thank goodness there's a wrestling ring, sort of thing. And brought us into the office. And anyway, long story short, what it turned out was that it came to find out in the end was it was a government funded course for troubled youth
Oh
that
my.
this guy Martin was trying to just sign people up for so that he could get government funding from each person. And it was kind of like a con man a little bit. But the thing was, this Martin Sterling, this thing, see, I didn't need like a troubled youth course because I had all my school credits and stuff like that. So I ended up just being his secretary and like just because he didn't know how to use computer, so I just did all his like emails and stuff. And but the thing was, he did actually wrestle in like the 70s and 80s. Is this wrestler called the Great Torima, and the Great Dane. He had like a couple of different names, but he wasn't anybody. And at that time, wrestling was pretty big on TV in New Zealand. But he wasn't on TV, which we didn't even know. He just acted like he was a massive veteran. And so yeah, so he did teach me everything. Like he taught me all the basics really well, and he was really strict as well, which is I'm really grateful for because like basics are so important in
Mhm.
professional wrestling. But yeah, and then like so like that first day I was like he did teach me that first day all we did was professional wrestling, and I was like, oh cool, all right, this is exactly what I want. Second day we turned up and he goes, okay, today we're not gonna be in the ring. We're just gonna like mow the lawns, weed the garden, fix up the place. And I was thinking, is this sort of like some Mr. Miyagi Karate Kid wax on wax off sort of thing? And yeah, so that he would just make his students uh, do all these like chores and stuff for him while he was collecting the government money for them. So yeah, so that was and also too, so because I needed a place to stay, he had actually built this fucking building in like the 80s with his students back then. This is how long he's been doing this thing, and it wasn't like up to code. It wasn't like a building code or anything. Every time like trains would go past, the whole building would like shake.
Oh
And
Jesus.
he yeah, and then out the back he converted a railway carriage into a room. He had built like just a room in a railway carriage, and I stayed there for 2 years, like cheap rent. So yeah, so yeah, it was pretty crazy stuff. But like that was. But the thing was, I loved it because it like I had just, as I said before, I had read like Mick Foley's book
Mhm.
and Chris Jericho's and stuff, and they all had like similar stories. You know, Mick Foley slept out of his car and stuff. So I was just thinking, as I was freezing in this train carriage at night, I was like, this will be a good story one day. It will be a good story. You know?
Absolutely. So you started that part, and then how long were you training before you started working your matches, and did you before you started venturing out?
Um. So well, so that company specifically was called NZWPW,
Hmm.
and I was training for 3 months before they put me in the ring, which I probably wasn't ready. but yeah, so yeah, I debuted after 3 months of training, and that was amazing. Like all my family, my friends, they came down and watched and stuff like that. I wrestled a guy. My first match ever was called. Well, the guy that I wrestled was called the Nerd. He
The
was like
nerd.
just he was a big heel. So that was that. But I stayed in that company for about 3 years, and again, like in New Zealand, and I guess it's like the case with a lot of small independent promotions everywhere in the world. Like you kind of stay loyal to that promotion in that area and stuff. So like I stayed there for like three years maybe,
Hmm.
and then I moved to another company in Auckland, which is like 6 hours away, which was like the better company, and they just got on TV and stuff like local TV, called IPW. And then I stayed there for a little while until I did a tryout with Zero One Japan. And then in 2012, I went to Japan. I went to Tokyo for 3 months, and I trained there with Zero One. Like Akuda Hidaka was my trainer, Masato Tanaka of ECW, and Shinjiro Otani. And those were my trainers in Japan. So that was when everything started to happen. That was when like my mind had started like opening up to pro wrestling and like the possibilities and the limitations and stuff. I was like, wow, I can actually go and make some money instead of just bumming around the local scene and not making anything and just sacrificing all my savings.
So how was it training over there, and then really getting into the grind of professional wrestling?
Yeah, it was insane, man. Like it was just all wrestling, and like as a young guy as well, like that's just kind of like what you need at that
Hmm.
time. It's just like wake up, we go straight to training. It's like it was like an hour of like cardio, and then like intense cardio squats, all the stuff that you can imagine with a Japanese training, and then it would be like an hour of like shoot fighting sometimes, and then on top of that it would be like 2 hours in the ring, and then it was grueling, but like I knew at the time it was like this is what I wanted, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? So like I can't be unhappy with where I am, even though you wake up and you don't want to walk to the gym. You're like, I don't want to go today. And then on top of that, and then on top of it, we train a week, and then we have to wrestle 2 3 times on the weekend, and you're like, by the time you like get a rest, you're like, I don't want to do anything. I don't even want to explore Tokyo or anything. I just want to sit down. So but it was great, man, and like the training was like as crazy as like you can imagine. We one like distinctive drill that like will like forever sit in my mind was, if you can imagine the wrestling ring, one
Hmm.
person's in a corner, the other person's in another corner, there's one person in the middle. The person in the middle will run to one corner, monkey flip this person, and they'd take the bump. They'd get up, run to the other person, monkey flip that person, and then just continuous. And I must have taken a bump about 70 to 80 times. And by, and by the time we finished, I was so defeated. They were just like, "You good, Travis?" I was like, "No words, just silence."
What
Uh,
was next after Japan?
so after Japan, I came back to New Zealand, and I was there for maybe another year, and I won like the big New Zealand title while I was there, which was incredible. It's something that's been like ever. I when I very first started wrestling in New Zealand, there was a they had actually got like a pay per view or something on Sky One, and it was a big collector pay per view of like all the New Zealand companies and stuff. And I watched it, and I was like, "Whoa, this is fucking!" I didn't even realize this could happen in New Zealand. And the company IPW that I went and worked for, like I remember seeing the champion, and I was just really amazed by like all those guys and stuff. So winning the New Zealand title was really really important to me, and I had it in my mind. It was a goal since day one. I had written it down, and I was able to. When I came back from there, it was a big moment. I was able to win the title, and then from there, I was fortunate enough to be able to go and train through a connection with Bad Luck Fale of New Japan Bullet Club. I was able to go and train with live and train with Davey Richards in St. Louis, Missouri, and I lived there for 3 months. And Kyle O'Reilly was there training with him at the same time. Aaron Solo of he's on AEW, who's in the
Hmm.
Nightmare Factory. And so like yeah, we were all there training with Davey, shoot wrestling, real wrestling, and then going around and traveling with him to all the shows and stuff. And I got to debut, and while I was there, I got to do a dark match for Ring of Honor, which was crazy. It was like a 6 minute 6 man tag match, but I was like, it was like WrestleMania for me. It was like it's fucking craziest thing I've ever done. You know what I mean? And I think Cheeseburger pinned me with a splash. I think that was the end of that. But then I came back from that. Um, I was in New Zealand a little bit longer, and then I decided to make a big move and go to a different scene, to the UK. And I was there for nearly 7 years, and obviously everything happened from then. So yeah, and I was very fortunate the timing of moving to the UK as well, because the UK scene, the independent scene there was really really blowing up at the time, and I kind of came in just at the perfect time to ride that wave with everybody else.
Hmm. How was that UK scene? Because that was right at the time that all eyes were on the UK. They were all
Yeah.
that had to have been crazy. It seems like everybody there was working just everywhere.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. Like I don't even think I expected, like, cause I went to in my mind I went to the UK just for like a chance to kind of like try and make it, cause I was like 28 at the time,
Hmm.
and I was thinking, well, it's now or never. I need to make a move and try and do something. And I didn't even really know the extent as to which the UK was blowing up until I got there. And then you've got like exceptional wrestlers like Zack Sabre and Tyler and Pete and stuff like that. And then to be able to fortunately just move to the correct location and get to be around all those guys and learn from those guys was exactly what I needed. And for me personally as well, like I've always been a really big fan of like 2005 Ring of Honor and that style, and like TNA like 2005 and stuff as well. And like I really wanted to express myself in that way, in that style of wrestling. And in New Zealand, it's not really like that. It's more a family friendly show, and I never really like been able to do that style of wrestling. And then coming to the UK, I was able to express myself in that way. And a big thanks to that was Fight Club Pro. I came in and Kyle O'Reilly had given me the connection, and he said he'd gone to this like awesome show in the UK where they just fucking have killer matches and just do everything, do like 25-minute matches and stuff. And I was like, oh, I was like, that sounds exactly what I want. So I messaged the promoter as soon as I literally as soon as I flew in, I messaged him and said, hey man, I'm here, blah blah blah. And Kyle had given me he'd spoken to him for me as well. And when I'd spoken to him, his name's Martin Zaki. He said to me, he's like, I want you to come. And like the foundation of Fight Club was do whatever you want. It's your way to express yourself in wrestling. And that was kind of like the key to the city for me. I was like, all right, let's fucking do whatever I want. And then as soon as I got to Fight Club, the fans were like immediately took to me, and that's where everything started happening. Um, we ran the storyline of Fight Club where I was just on a losing streak.
Hmm.
Pete was the champion. Pete Dunne was the champion. I was on a massive losing streak, and then finally we got to this thing called the Infinity Tournament, and I that was like the way it works was like this like 4-way match, and then the winners of these two 4-way matches go into the finals, and then I wrestled, and then got like a Luke roll up on Tyler in the 4-way, beat him, crowd fucking went insane, and then I went into the finals that night, and it was me versus Trent Seven, and we just did everything you could ever fucking imagine in a professional wrestling match. We're doing pile drivers off the top, kicking out at one, crazy shit like this that you would never get away with on TV or anything like that. And then I won the tournament, and that was like the fucking crowning moment. Like it was like all my hard work and sacrifice and moving to the UK and everything, it culminated in that night. And then after that tournament, it was just like fuck, like everybody. Then Progress came knocking, and then Rev Pro and stuff like that. So that initial storyline run in Fight Club was the reason that I got over everywhere else in the UK. There was a few matches that were really like notable early on as well. There was me versus Zack Sabre Jr. In Fight Club, and we were the opening match, which was mental. And we were actually waiting for other wrestlers to come from another show. So like they came up to this and said, "Guys, do whatever you want, go as long as you want." And fuck, we must have went like 28 minutes or something. Like just it was just wrestling as well, and it was like the thing that I needed to like as I said before, express myself. And after that, everybody was like, "Fuck!" Like that was like standing ovation. I was like fucking holding back tears in the ring, you know. That match, and then I had a match with Tyler at Attack Pro Wrestling. Same sort of thing. It was just more of a like a Japanese style match in amongst like a sort of a variety show, comedy show. And then all of a sudden we just came out and had this like really hard hitting match. It was like those two matches, and then I had another match with Zack Sabre Jr. on What Culture Pro Wrestling. Now which is crazy again. It was all about timing. Whereas like I was called in last minute. Somebody had pulled out. I can't remember the exact story, but Zach had just had that match with me at Fight Club, and it was for pay per view. It was like a live internet pay per view called Lights Out for What Culture Pro Wrestling. And they go, "Zach, who can you wrestle? Like, can you wrestle? Do you want to wrestle anyone?" And I just had that match with Sabre, and he was like, "Let's wrestle Travis." So they called me, and I got that match. And then, fucking hell, I've never, like, before that, I'd never experienced anything like social media blowing up for me. And then after that match with Sabre, it lights out my Twitter and my fucking Instagram and Facebook was just like, I was just looking at my phone. It was at the time where your notifications came in one at a time. So I was just put it down face down. I was like, all right, that's crazy. So those are like the three matches that were really important when I first got here. But it was a crazy time, man. Like I think a lot of us didn't really like we understood it, but it was just like happening so fast. You know, we were selling merch. It was like it was just from for me personally from going from not making any money in the business to selling out merch every fucking show and commanding a better fee because you know I'm blowing up around the scene was crazy, and it was so fast because I got there in November of 2015 I think, and then I was like Fight Club champ by the end of 2016, and then I was Progress champ in 2017. It all happened in like a year and a half. Like everything was like really fast.
Is this what put you on WWE's radar?
Yeah, so it's a funny story, and like I was telling my girlfriend this the other day as well. This is like in 2014, I had a tryout in Australia for WWE. A lot of the guys like we were in, and I remember going there, and at that time I had nothing, no footing, nothing in the business, and I was so nervous. I was like so fucking stressed all the time. I was just like coming on the run up to the tryout. I was a mess. I was like stomach problems because I was so nervous. Got there. It was an average tryout. It was just whatever, and I didn't get picked. It was they when they do a tryout, they say yes, no, or maybe. And if they give you a no, that's like a definite no. But if they give you like maybe later, then like you're still on their radar, but they're not really interested. And I didn't get picked. And I was like, all right, sweet. Like I was sitting there at the end of the tryout, and then as we were all about to leave, I like went into the office where at the time the talent recruiter, I think his name's Kenyon Seaman,
Mm-hmm.
um, he was sitting there, And I walked in and I said, "Hey man, I just want to ask you a question." I just busted up all my courage and walked in there. I was like, "Hey man, I just want to ask you a question." I was like, "What can I do to like be signed by this company?" And he goes, "To be honest, man, I'm gonna be really honest with you." He goes, "Go and make a name for yourself on the Indies, and then we'll look at you." And then I was like, "Okay, thank you very much. I'll do that." Not knowing how I would do that, I was like, "I will do that." So then, yeah. So then, not knowing what was to come, obviously, fast forward to the next tryout. It's what I did. So um, so what had happened was, so Progress started to get involved with WWE, and they started like, I don't know, whatever the connection was that they were like looking in, and of course, because the UK scene was really really hot, of course WWE going to start looking at that scene, and is it a potential competition and whatnot. So they obviously started looking at the top promotion, which was Progress at the time, and I was the champion, so I I assumed I was like, number one, like, looking at me, person number one to look at. So yeah, and then we did it. Then they brought another tryout to the UK, and I remember being in the tryout. It was whatever. It was a normal stock standard tryout, and I remember halfway through the tryout, Regal came up to me and he said to me, he goes, "Don't worry, you're already signed." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Hold on, what?" He goes, "Don't worry, just get through the tryout, and then you'll be signed." And I was like, "Fuck!" And I went home and I thought about the story that I just told you from 2014, thinking how nervous and shitty and crappy I felt, and then to go to another tryout and just halfway through be like, "You already signed, don't worry about it." I was like, "Fucking crazy."
So
So yeah.
how was your time in NXT UK?
Um, it's a mixed bag, and I try and be positive about it because right now, obviously, I'm wrestling. I'm sure we'll get to it in a sec, but I'm wrestling and stuff in Mexico, and obviously, after everything that's happened, being in NXT and in WWE has afforded me a lot of opportunities in Mexico. A lot of people know me. Can you hear the guy screaming in the
You're
background?
fine. Yeah, I can get it out. It's fine.
That's fine. This is every day in Mexico, bro. They're always selling stuff on the street, so yeah. Yeah, of course. And every time I try and do something like a podcast or like maybe a phone call, it always happens. Dogs start barking. It's like they know I'm on a phone call. So, but yeah, so like NXT, and WWE's afforded me a lot of opportunities here, especially after everything that's happened. Um, People still want to see me and come see me wrestle and talk to me and stuff like that. And I didn't actually realize the impact it had at the time when I was in NXT UK. I just thought, oh, this is whatever.
Mhm.
But now that I'm actually out in the world exploring wrestling, you actually realize the impact that those sort of shows have had. Like, for example, I was just in Costa Rica, and the fans, it's the most craziest experience. Like, I would never have thought I had fans in Costa Rica, but they fucking I went there last year, and I was surprised on the show. They didn't even announce me, and I was thinking, I don't fucking think this is gonna. And then my music hit, and as soon as my music hit, the roof blew off the place, and I was like, what the fuck? And they were like, oh, I saw you on NXT and all this, and it's like, shit, man. Like you don't. I just don't think you realize something. Well, especially for me, I don't think I realized just how much of an impact it was making at the time.
Mhm.
Even though there's a lot of like negative um, discourse around it, you know, from like Twitter, but Twitter's not a real place, so you know. And but my time there was, as I said, it was a mixed bag. Like at first, it was really really fucking fun. Um, we had it wasn't the first tournament. It wasn't the first NXT tournament, the UK tournament. It was the second one, and I went to the finals with Zach Gibson at the Royal Albert Hall. Now, to me, that was fucking crazy. To main event like a WWE pay per view at the Royal Albert Hall was kind of like a combination of like everything, you
Mhm.
know, and like it was so special. It was like three matches as well. It was like, oh, it was just unreal, and like you. as I said, like everything happens fast and chaotic. You don't really like sit down and like think about like what exactly is happening. Like I do go out and do the first match. I come back and like Shawn Michaels is giving me advice, and Triple H is like giving me advice. I'm like, yeah, sweet. And then I go out for the second match, and I come back and they're telling me shit. This is what we want. This is what we blah blah blah. Go go go. And then you do the fucking final, and then you come back and they're like hugging you and shit. And then I was like sitting in the hotel room like that night, and I was thinking, fuck? What is going on? You know what I mean? This is crazy. Like, just it was such a like a positive like tournament and like entry into NXT and what would then become NXT UK. Um, I feel like at the time they had a lot of big plans for me. Um, and then when the TV tapings started, we were still able to wrestle for independence because there wasn't much work with WWE, so they allowed us to wrestle independence until Travis Banks got injured, and then they changed all the contracts. So I was supposed to wrestle like maybe the main event. They had some big plans for the first TV tapings for me, but the night before I wrestled a Fight Club show and I dislocated my shoulder. So, fuck. Yeah. So I was supposed to be out 6 months, but I was like I had to get back on TV, so I came back in 3 months. Just rehabbed every day as hard as I could. But I remember that day I came into the TV tapings with my arm in a sling, and they're all just like Travis, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, so that was I think that really kind of like stopped my momentum. And then by the time that I came back, I think they had like other guys that they were starting to push more like in storyline and stuff. So like Ilya and Jordan and stuff like that started getting more of the whatever. And again, those guys deserve it. They're very very good professional wrestlers. So like I kind of went to like the back burner. And what kind of got more frustrating for me was like you would go in and you would pitch ideas. Like you always hear like go in, make sure you pitch ideas and keep on them so that they know that you're interested and stuff like that. You get all these types of like advice. So I would be going in. I have fucking pages of things that I've pitched. Turn me heel, turn me whatever. Do this with me because I always find like I've always known with TV wrestling that you need to have some sort of like stock in a character. Like if you're not getting any screen time with a character, they don't. If you're just wrestling, like an independent wrestler, if you're just wrestling, there's no stock there. You need a character. You have segments and stuff so people can get used to who you are and whatever. And they weren't giving me any of that. And I was thinking, I'm gonna be dead in the water if I don't have any of that. So I kept pitching ideas, and they'd say, no, you're doing great work. You're doing great work. Getting more frustrated, and it's like, and then they'll just tell you what you want to hear really, and then it kind of just got like that, and I was getting increasingly more frustrated as time went on. So yeah, but I had a lot of great times there. So there's a few matches that all my matches with Jordan, I love. Like me and him have wrestled like 1,000 times. We've had similar careers. He went to 0-1. Same thing as me. We kind of come up similar age, and every time we wrestle, we have great ones. So being able to wrestle him in WWE was incredible, and we just knew each other to have that. And then being able to go to Houston and wrestle on the Worlds Collide pay per view, and it was me, Jordan, Swerve Strickland, and Angel Garza for the cruiserweight title. That was insane. I'd never wrestled in front of that many people before, and I I love that match as well. And a lot of that match is actually one of the ones that everybody like here in Mexico was like, I saw this the 4-way from whatever. So and then and also too, like when we came back from the match, everybody was so happy, and you know, Shawn Michaels like hugged me again. It's just a really nice moment, like to be able to you know go over there, go to Houston, wrestle in a massive arena on a WrestleMania weekend, I think it was, and do something incredible and do good work. That's you know that was what it was all about, and I really have fond memories of that time.
How has life been after WWE?
Um, well, it's been tough. It's been difficult. Obviously, with everything that's happened, um, trying to get back into wrestling has been really, really a hard road. Um, at first, I never thought I was going to be able to wrestle again, which was really upsetting. And the reason that it's upsetting is because wrestling has been my identity
Hmm.
forever. And I said at the start of this, like from when I was a little kid, this is all I wanted to do. Every decision that I've made has been for professional wrestling. And now you're like, I'm at a crossroads where it's like, what's my identity? I don't know who I am anymore. Like, if I don't have professional wrestling, I'm not sure how I identify with myself.
Hmm.
And that was kind of like a big kind of thing that I had to like kind of wrestle with. And then I was then I was thinking about Japan again, and then again, but I wasn't sure what my options were because of everything that happened. And we reached out to a few companies through some people, and they said not now because of the pandemic, which is another thing.
Hmm.
All this was going on while the pandemic was happening, so there was no jobs anywhere anyway. So I was like, "Fuck, what am I gonna do?" And also, when I finished with WWE, my work visa was revoked. So I'm from New Zealand, living in the
Hmm.
UK. I have a I was renting a house. I had my dog, got my partner with me, and then all of a sudden my work visa gets revoked, and I'm like, oh shit, I don't. Where am I gonna go? Then I try to apply for like temporary work visas, but because it was the pandemic, I couldn't get them. Because how could you prove the work
Hmm.
with stuff like that? So I was like, oh fuck, what are we gonna do? Leave my dog. It was the most upsetting thing, leaving my dog. Um, but so then we were like, well, let's see what options are there. And then just by random chance, one of my friends from Mexico actually messaged me and said, hey man, why don't you just try here? Like Mexico doesn't really care about that sort of stuff. Like, and just if anything, you just get your toes, like dip your toes back into wrestling, see how you feel about it. And I was like, all right. I was like, fuck, I'm gonna move to Mexico. All right, dude. I was like, all right. Well, so yeah, so me and my partner, we moved everything to Mexico. Left my dog with her parents. Um, and then we came here. Didn't speak Spanish, nothing, and it's been tough. As you can imagine, post being cancelled or post anything like that, a lot of people won't give you a chance. You have to knock on a lot of doors, many times, and then it wasn't until I wrestled for this company here called IWRG, and they run out of an arena called Arena Narcopa, and it's the arena that they filmed Nacho Libre in, which is a pretty cool bit of trivia. So it wasn't until I wrestled for them, and they had like all the streaming services come to them and they film and stuff like that. So as soon as I did that, for the first booking, it was like, oh, Travis is wrestling now, and then that's when all the bookings started to pick up again. And um, now yeah, it's it's back to kind of business as usual. It can be harder, like the travels really can be really hard, and Mexico can be hard in itself sometimes. But I feel like I feel like it's like because it's so hard, and because like we've been through so much, and really like learned who I am as a person, and like who I am as a wrestler, and learn things about me and what I can put up with and withstand and stuff like that. Like I feel like this experience in Mexico has been really really or will be really rewarding in the long run. Just on a and not even just professional wrestling wise, just on a personal level.
Absolutely. I can't. I would assume that the travel there can be very, very hard, and you seem like you're all over the place, like going
Yeah,
from Mexico to Costa Rica and all that. So I'm glad that you've got back into the groove of everything.
yeah. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it just let lag a little bit. Yeah. No, thanks, man. Yeah, it has been, it's been awesome. To be honest, like, when was I ever gonna see Costa Rica unless I came here?
Hmm.
And when was I ever gonna see Guatemala? Because I wrestled in Guatemala, and like those are crazy experiences that I never thought I would ever have. And also, like, there's people here that like are really important in my life now as well. There's a lot of like companies as well that are really important, like not just on a wrestling level, on a personal level as well. Like really true friends that like genuinely care about you and your well being. So like being able to come here and meet those people as well is like is insane. And like there's like wrestlers here. that I've wrestled that are just as good as
Hmm.
guys that have wrestled like Will Ospreay or something like that. You know, there's a guy in Morelia that I wrestled, a really good friend called Rene Rocks, and we've had 2 or 3 matches that have been incredible. Like some of my favorites in my career. And I wrestled this guy in Costa Rica called Plan, and again, the insane, the most like incredible like experiences that I've had, and like like I've wrestled some of the best Osprey, Zack Saber, Riddle, whoever you want to say, and like those guys are up there, and it's crazy to go to these like little countries and find people just as fucking talented,
Hmm.
you know.
Absolutely. If you had any advice for anyone getting into professional wrestling, what would it
Don't, no, no,
be?
no. I would say that. Okay. Let me think about this.
Vince Russo
Um,
said that on one of my episodes, and Booker T went off, so don't say
yeah.
that.
Uh, oh, there's so many things, and I think one of the most important things to me that I always need to remind myself of, even to this day, is to make sure that you're enjoying what you're doing. There was a point when I was in the UK where I was, it was actually when I was Progress Champion, that I was kind of at my lowest mentally, and the reason was because I was listening to too many people. Um, I was reading too many reviews. I was reading too many tweets, and that kind of it became so like like it it was everything. Like that was my world. Like I was just having matches and then like hoping everybody liked it, and then I just wish back then when I like all the cool things were happening that I just sat back and I enjoyed it a little bit more. And I think we have to remember as wrestlers we got into professional wrestling because it's cool. It's a really cool thing and a really cool experience, and you can have really fun in this, really a lot of fun in this job, traveling around the world, and just to remember to enjoy where you are and what you're doing. So like for example, like going to Costa Rica, me and my girlfriend were able to go and see a little bit of the country and stuff like that, and you know it can be like a humbling experience sometimes, just sitting there like looking out at a beautiful view in Costa Rica or wherever it is, Guatemala or whatever the country is and going, oh, wrestling has brought me all of this.
Hmm.
Like I'm fortunate enough to be able to travel the world. Um, and when you think of it that way, like the things like the reviews and the star ratings of matches and stuff, it really is inconsequential. You know, it
Hmm.
doesn't really it doesn't really matter. Um, and I just hope for the future of professional wrestling, like that a lot of the younger wrestlers don't get caught up in that stuff and try and just enjoy what they're doing and like being able to go out there and entertain a crowd and listen to what the crowd likes instead
Hmm.
of what one person's opinion on the internet is better. So I think that, and then like just basic stuff as well is like if this is what you want to do and this is the sort of life you want to get involved in, like be prepared that you have to give. If you want something out of professional wrestling, you have to put like like everything into it. You know, if you want to get whatever you want to get, however far you want to get into in wrestling, is 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 determined by how much you put into professional wrestling.
Absolutely. Where can people reach out to you at?
Instagram Travis underscore Banks 13. I think is my Instagram. You just type it in. I'm sure like my face will come up. My Facebook, Travis Banks Pro Wrestler, whatever. Not on Twitter. Don't look for me on Twitter because you won't find me. TikTok. Put up some clips on TikTok. It's always fun. So yeah. Travis Banks on TikTok as well. So yeah, thanks, man.
Well, I just want to say thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling and what you continue to do, sir. If there's anything I can ever do, please feel free to reach out.
Okay, thank you, man. No, that's really nice of you to say, man. I really appreciate it, and also too, it's important for me personally to be able to come on podcasts and like show who I am as a person and the
Hmm.
wrestler, share my story. So I appreciate you reaching out to me and allowing me to do this.
Absolutely. Anytime. We can do it again sometime.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, definitely.